Welcome, everybody, to the Cine-Files, where every week we dive into the world of a great film.
Trying to remember it?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I am your co-host, John Stephen Roca. I am a actor, voiceover artist, actor, a host, writer, and producer over at Collider, and a frequent guest on numerous other shows. Yes, is that right? Did I miss anything?
I think that's everything.
Okay.
I am Stephen Robert Morris, since we're giving middle names, and I am a sometimes filmmaker, a sometimes writer, a host on the Cine-Files, and probably some other stuff too.
Well, this is my idea. We're not going to talk about a film this week because this was my idea to Steve, as Steve really liked. And, you know, Steve and I, Steve's done an incredible amount of work throughout the whole Cine-Files process. And I just thought we should take a week where we just talk about our journey on this podcast and our journey with you all as fans and your comments and the things you've told us over the last few months as we've done the show, because when we started doing it, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what was going to go. We didn't know how it would affect our friendship and our working relationship, what our working relationship would be like. And so I thought this would be a great kind of end of year conversation to have for you all, where you just sit and listen to Steve and I talk about the show and then talk about our interactions with you all and give you guys a lot of credit and plaudits and love for having stuck by us almost every week for every film we've done. So that's what the general gist of this episode is going to be. By the way, I hope you had an awesome Christmas. We hope you had an awesome Christmas. Yeah. And I think this is coming out around New Year's. So
somewhere around New Year's.
I hope you enjoyed your New Year's, and welcome to 2018. We made it. We survived Y2K17. I hope you have your cans of soup and your water. You didn't need to use any of that, and you're good to go. So we survived into another year. But anyway, this is what I wanted to do. Steve, what do you want to say here?
Well, it's so funny because, as you know, I might be described as a bit of a control freak, and normally when we do an episode of the Cine-Files, I have my iPad open and I have pages and pages of notes to try to keep straight the movies and all the little details and facts and tidbits and stuff I want to talk about. My iPad is closed. I have no idea where this is going to go.
But this is why Steve and I work together, I think, so well, is because Steve is very, very organized. He's very, very, but I like to be organic.
You shoot from the hip.
Yeah, I like to be organic. I've never been at a loss for an opinion or the ability to express my opinion, which is why I would say is why I've been somewhat successful pursuing this change in my professional life. And so this is fun to do now, kind of lead this conversation, because this, as I said, this was my idea. So I just wanted, Steve, so let's just have this kind of conversation.
Sure.
When did this show occur to you? Because people don't know, Steve pitched me this show in the midst of me doing 6 other shows and doing a bunch of other things at the same. This was before I was at Collider full time, so I was doing I was doing the Collider after shows. I was doing Far Far Away. I was doing podcasts. I was doing a bunch of other things, I think. So when did this idea come into your head of doing the show with me?
Well, I think, I honestly think I was looking for a creative outlet. Like after The Assistants, and then after I'd done this Great White Shark film, which I'm really proud of and has only aired in Europe and Asia and has never aired in the United States.
Yeah.
And I was so depressed from all of that. And I'd started teaching, because I was like, and I got into I'm in my mid 40s, and maybe this dream of Hollywood isn't going to happen the way that I thought it was going to happen. And I had kind of Iron Manned so many projects and had them, gotten the shit kicked out of me a little bit. And I was looking around for a creative outlet. And I listened to so many podcasts and audiobooks, and I'd been listening to you for about a year, doing a lot of your podcasts and really liking them and going like, oh, maybe this is something that I could do. And I think our first conversation, we didn't really have an idea. I kind of just came to you and said, would you be interested in trying to do a podcast with me? And then it kind of went towards classic films.
Yeah.
And then, it took a little while to figure out what the format was, but it was really me just going, how can I ride on John Roca's coattails and use him? That's pretty much it, to do something that would be creatively fulfilling for me. And it really has been.
Well, it's humbling to hear you say that, because I just don't feel I deserve any of that. But like in my mind, I remember that we'd had conversation with our friend Jonathan Blue, and we'd always talked about movies with him, because Jonathan's very knowledgeable about movies, and we should have him on the show one time for a film he really loves. But I remember us being at a party because we've been friends for 15 years now, or a long time. Steve and I have been, and I remember Steve and I, Jonathan, would always like eventually slide into a conversation about a film or about classic films or a classic film director. And I remember us being at a party one time, and I just kind of talked about the possibility of the three of us doing a show called I don't know. What do you think? And that was going to be the title of the show. And so we would talk about a film, we would review a film, and then go. And at the end of our opinions, one of us would go, I don't know. What do you think? And it would be a way of like both reinforcing our beliefs about the film, but then undercutting the seriousness of believing your own belief about the film. That you have to create space to have other conversations, other points of view. And then and then I just forgot about it. And I think then you brought it like months later. You came to me and were like, well, I am thinking about doing a show. Would you want to do a show with me? Would you? And then we kind of said, well, it has to be like what we've always talked about, the great films, the classic films. And then we kind of arbitrarily came up with the idea that having a 10-year window. It is definitely
arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't think I've ever told you this story, but it's something that's influenced me on a lot of thinking about how I think about this show, which was, and it's such a bizarre story, but sometime in the late 80s, I was watching Phil Donahue, as you do.
As you did back then.
As you did back then. And Phil Donahue had on 2 or 3 movie critics and 2 or 3 guys who worked in video stores to talk about movies. And that was the panel.
Wow.
And I have such a strong memory of like there'd be, and they would ask questions from the audience, and someone in the audience say, well, I want to watch a really gory, stupid slasher movie. And the film critics would have nothing to say. And they're like, oh, well, this movie's terrible. I'm not going to talk about it. And the guys who worked in the video store would say, oh, if you want a really dumb one, you have to go get this one. It's 1984, like whatever it is.
Right.
And I remember having the epiphany that like, oh, the film critics feel that their job is to direct you away from bad things.
Right.
And that the guys in the video store, they feel like their job is to direct you towards things that they love. And the reasons that they love them can be different, because the reasons you love the dumb, silly, gory slasher film are different from why you love Citizen Kane.
Right.
And like, and that's one of the things I knew when we first started talking is I don't want to be negative. You know what I mean? There's so many. There's so many podcasts and there's so many things where it's like about ripping up the latest film. It's like, first of all, I don't think it makes sense to compete in that space. And second of all, I know from making movies, it is really, really fucking hard. And most filmmakers, including the great filmmakers, make films that aren't good. And that I don't need to waste time ripping things apart.
Right.
I want to talk about what I love in film. And that started guided I think our early conversations in terms of how we approach this.
Yeah, and I remember how surprising that was to me, because Matt and Ost and I over on the Top 10 show, we love doing the occasional episode where we bash a film or tear a film apart, and in nowhere do we bash the creators of the film. We bash the film itself. You know what I'm saying? And so,
and make no mistake, I can bash a film.
Oh, sure.
You have heard me.
Yes, yes, I know. Yes, I know. But so when you said that, I actually thought that was a fantastic thing for you to say. I remember hearing it the first time, and I was like, oh, this is actually cool then, because then we can talk about the films we love, which I think is really important. I think the people listen to us to hear our analysis films, but also because we love it. And it didn't mean that we weren't going to pick a classic film that maybe I didn't like, or you didn't like, or didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Or didn't think was the best, no matter how much people tell us they love it. Like you've said before on The Searchers or French Connection, those are just not your kind of films.
Right.
But that doesn't mean the film can't be talked about or analyzed or looked at from an objective point of view as an analyst or a critic or whatever. So those are I really enjoyed when you said that, because I was like, okay, well, this means we're going to have a lot of films to choose from that we are going to enjoy. It's going to make it enjoyable to do the podcast.
Well, it's funny. People have asked on Twitter and how do you guys pick what film you're going to do next? And the answer is like a very scientific process based on algorithms and computer. No, we're just picking the things that we do. I mean, yes, we have a Patreon page, and you could suggest films, and we're going to do a lot of those films in the coming year.
Absolutely.
Because we've been a little behind on it. All right. But we're going to do a lot of those films. But a lot of it is we kind of look at what we just did and look at where we are and go, oh, well, this will be an interesting contrast to what came before. And most of it is like, I call you up or you call me up and go, oh, I'd really love to do this one right now. And then it's okay. Yeah. Whatever we feel passionate about, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and we had a number of meetings about like what films should we talk, what films should we, and we would like create this list, and it was an Excel spreadsheet. We sent it back and forth to each other so we could add. And at some point, it got to be 81 films. Like, Jesus Christ, we're not going to have time to do all these, because we didn't know if the show was even going to be successful, or people were going to listen,
Right.
if it was going to take off, and but we created an initial list, and then what's been great through this process, though, as fans have become more and more in love with our podcast and really enjoy it and look forward to our podcast every week, it's been nice to see them suggest films that, because we're so caught up in like the next great film we're going to do, that sometimes we forget there are anniversaries of films,
Right.
or there are films coming out that
relate to something.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so some of you, and I'll say this to you all who are listening, some of your tweets have influenced the films we've chosen, either indirectly or directly.
There's no question. There was someone, I think, that tweeted something about Excalibur, and I think we recorded it like 3 days later.
That's right. That's
you know,
right.
because we just both went, yes, that sounds great to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and
there have been weeks we've chosen films and then changed the film because of someone's suggestion. Yeah.
Right. Well, and some of the reasons that we changed the films that we're doing is because someone passes away. It's
Yes.
just very sad. And we go, well, we want to do a tribute to a great filmmaker or a great actor.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of a fascinating watching because the other thing that we often try to do is we want to do the big famous movies.
Yeah.
But we also sometimes want to do a movie that's maybe less known, that we both have a love for, and that hits us at the right moment.
Exactly.
And one of the really nice things has been hearing that there are people who've discovered movies they never saw, or watched movies they had always heard about but never had the time to watch because we did the podcast.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's been one of my greatest joys, to hear that, or to read that rather, on Twitter or on the Instagram posts I do, or on the YouTube comments. Sometimes people say like, yeah, I'd always wanted to watch this film, and now you motivated me. And some people, it was really fascinating when I get these tweets from people who go on binges of
Right.
our show, like episodes back to back to back, and then watch the movies back to back to back that we're talking about. That's fascinating to me. And so because the whole point that Steve and I, even when we first started having conversations about films, like way back when in our friendship, it was about the love of these films, the enjoyment of these films. And you find a kinship with someone who understands how to analyze these films. And there's a joy to that, because there's nothing more joyful for me than like you saying something and I go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Oh, wow, what a new and interesting way to appreciate the film. Because sometimes you think you've looked at it as many ways as you can, and then someone says something, puts some things together, and then you're like, oh shit, I didn't think of it that way. And that's been so great things about the film, about the show.
And I think it's always, you and I bring a different perspective to the movies. Both we bring different perspective because we have different backgrounds. We have come, we come from different places, but also because, I'm 90% of the time, I'm always sitting back a little bit from film and being intellectual, because that's just how my brain works.
Right.
And you are much more in the moment and responding emotionally. And so I always learn things and have to think about things in a new way by experiencing them through the way that you're experiencing them, and that's been one of the great, I think that's why, this works really well between the two of us.
Yeah.
And then particularly when we bring in guests, we've had some great guests over the years, and basically every one of them
Over the years. I love that. We've been doing this for 30 years.
a year and a half.
Has it been a year and a half?
Yeah.
Fuck off. Really?
Yeah, year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, we started in June of 2016.
Holy crap. A year and a half. That's amazing. All right. Yeah, keep going. I'm sorry. Over the years. Yes, sure.
Over the
That
years.
agrees. 2
Over the
years.
months.
I agree. 2 years. It counts.
And every one of them has brought stuff that was like new and interesting things about those films.
Yeah.
And this is the thing too, is in a lot of ways where this started was you and I drinking in a bar after seeing a movie and wanting to create some of that feeling of just having a great conversation about film with your friends.
Yeah. And you're right. We bring these people on, and almost every single time after they're done, they're like, I want to come back. When can I come back? Think of me for any film you've got coming down the pike. And we've had, our friends are very accomplished people in their own career paths, and for them to come on and enjoy how we have conversations about films. I don't think anyone's walked away from being a guest on our film and our show rather and been like, oh, that was an unpleasant experience, or I didn't enjoy doing that, or
Not as far as we know.
yeah. Well, I've never, because
I don't think we have.
no, because Yuri Lowenthal, who did the Willy Wonka.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, it was great. I casually mentioned on Twitter because someone said, when is Yuri coming back? And I'm casually, I'm sure we'll have Yuri back soon. And Yuri in capital letters tweeted back, my body is ready for whenever. So it's just
awesome.
and I love that. And Steve Jones, who is a
Old friend of mine.
a incredibly picky guy who's like very anal retentive about things, had a great time on our show. Dan Panosian, who has no reason to come on our show, enjoyed doing Conan the Barbarian with us. We've had Michael Vogel on numerous times. Catherine Early, is that?
Yeah, Kathleen Early.
Kathleen Early.
Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, who did her. She was so much fun to have on the show. And we've had Sasha Pearl Raver do Pulp Fiction.
And we just recently on Twitter, someone wrote, "When are you having Sasha back?"
Yeah,
and of course we want to. We've been talking about having her come back.
Yeah, we've tried. We're trying to schedule that. It's people are busy. It's how it works sometimes.
We've had the great Scott Mance from Access Hollywood. And those
probably 3 of our greatest episodes ever in terms of response.
Yeah, they always take some energy from me to like, going, okay, Scott's coming back. Here we go.
You got to strap into that roller coaster.
You got to strap in. It's got to be big. It's got to be big.
And Victoria Keller, Victoria's come on, Vicky's come on and done a couple of episodes with us as well. So many great
Mike
guests.
Ross, Michael Ostrom,
right?
All sorts of great people have come on the show.
Oh, Ostrom was great.
Yeah. I mean, if we talked about. It's funny. We just did our Empire Strikes Back episode, and we talked about Yoda.
Yeah.
And I forgot to say, like, if you really want to know more about how the Muppets work, you got to go listen to the Muppet Movie.
That's
with
true.
Mike Ostrom, because he has so much to say about that.
Yeah.
Now that's because the other thing that's been so great about the show is that this is like film school for me.
Yeah.
Because every week it has forced me to spend 5 to 10, 15 hours studying a film and really kind of forcing myself to think about it and that's been just a great learning experience.
Yeah, and that's something that all of you listening should know. Steve spends so much time developing.
Far too much.
Well, it shows. And I think it's the reason why, one of the big reasons why the show is so successful is because people can tell your attention to detail comes from a place of care for these films. And so you want to get it right. And your care for the audience, to get it right for the audience. Like you care about the people listening to the show that are understanding what we're talking about, where you're coming from, glossary terms, whatever, all that stuff, that you're teaching them how to look at film in a certain way. And I think that's great because we were once those kids or those people listening or reading people's reviews or watching their reviews on television going, oh, wow, I never thought to look at a film this way. I never thought to look at these films in a certain way. And that's the way we work really well is your technical approach to it. You understand camera lenses and like shots. You have the words for all the shots that these directors are using that I have I just know what I'm seeing, right? And I pay more attention to the acting and the overall threads of the movie, storyline threads of the movie. Those are the things that grab my attention more. And the technical stuff is great to appreciate, but I couldn't tell you the lens they used or the lighting, how the lighting was set up, or how they got this kind of stuff to look a certain way, or how the editing was done, which is something you do on the show as well, editing the show to put in the clips and everything like that. Just fantastic stuff all around. And I think that shows. So yes, maybe you think you spend too much on it, but I would like to think that the love you get from the fans for the show is
absolutely. It's been such a rewarding experience for me because I think I've said this on the show before, with so many things where I would write a screenplay or finish a film in some times, and then it would just sit and nobody would see it.
Right.
Like I have a pilot that I worked on that I developed with a fairly well-known actress that I thought we were going to shop around, and then she got other stuff. And so suddenly now it's back in a drawer. So it sat in a drawer for a year. And it's like, I worked months and months and months on this script. I'm really proud of it, and no one will ever see it. Yeah. And the pain of that just weighs you down after a while. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about Cine-Files is I finished the episode at Thursday at, midnight or something. And Friday morning I wake up and there's a tweet saying that someone already listened to it. Yeah. And that feels so good. Like it's funny. There's a thing in Stephen King's Dark Tower series where there's a character who's an artist and can't stop doing their painting basically. And the thing Stephen King writes is that something like art has to get out. Yeah. And it'll do anything in order to be heard. And I feel that way sometimes. Like you just want to be heard. That's why I like teaching too, by the way, is I like teaching because I have a direct connection with the people that I'm talking to, and I can feel that there's a back and forth happening there, and that's really special.
Well, I think artists have to have their outlets, right? Art has to have an outlet, like what you were saying. That quote makes absolute sense. Yeah, sense rather. And to me, the reason I got into this whole thing was to be able to talk about movies, to talk about this. For me, it's about the joy, right? Yeah. I don't know if I'm teaching anybody anything. For me, it's
I think you are. well, no, seriously, there's no question about it.
Well, I'm very humbled by you saying that, man, because it just to me, it's I watched your knowledge of film is incredible for me to watch, and it's
Oh,
like I don't have that impetus to learn all the different things about it, or else I could be a director, I suppose, in the future, right? I've directed plays.
Yeah.
I've never directed film because it's just
It's super technical.
yes, and I don't have that proclivity to learn all that. So to listen to you talk about it is great and fun for me. Like my friend Perry Nemiroff, who works at Collider, and she's a great critic. She went back to college after already having gotten a job full-time in the business doing film review. She went back to college so she could understand the technical aspects of making a film, so that her reviews would have more depth to them and more understanding and more knowledge. And so that's something I'm kind of cheating by doing this with you. Like I'm learning so much from you as I do the shows, and like rewatching the old films we talk about. And even the ones we haven't talked about yet, it's fun to see. Oh, well, that's what Steve was talking about. That particular shot, or that particular usage of that shot over and over again at a certain time, and the editing pace of something. Like all of that comes back to me as I'm watching stuff.
Well, I think like the thing that's important to remember about film, and this is something I talk about with my students quite a bit, is that films are extremely technical. Learning how to make movies is just there's a lot of details and lenses and f-stops and editing equipment and
lighting
and plus just the logistics of getting people to the set and feeding them, and permits and budgets and all that stuff. And all of that exists in service of emotion. And if the emotion is not there, then all the other stuff didn't matter. And I think one of the things that maybe you don't give yourself enough credit for is that that's what you bring. And particularly like listening to Outlaw Nation is the level of your honesty that you bring to the podcast and your emotional experience. That's what's going to move people listening. I mean, they might want to learn from me, but the whole point of watching these movies is you're going to have an emotional experience, and that's what they're going to get. That's what you do so well on the show.
Oh, well, thank you. That's kind of you. Well, that's being an actor, right? That's all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
You live viscerally, and I feel bad for everyone who's ever sat next to me in a movie theater, because I do experience. Steve knows.
I've been there a couple times.
Yeah, I experience movies as they're happening, and I'm not like a wildish, outlandish guy, but when things are happening, my emotions are there, and I'm like living viscerally through the film, and that's one of the reasons why I love film, man. And listen, the world lets you down, people let you down, people leave you, people die. Tragedies you experience in life. Sometimes your life doesn't go the way you want it to go, and you have to confront these things. But the place I always find solace is the movies, man. It's in a movie theater or in my house watching a movie. It takes me away. One of the big reasons why I wanted to do the show with you was to either convey that in some way or to pass that on to people who are struggling in their own lives, and maybe can find some respite in the movies or in the stuff we talk about, and see lessons from the films in their own lives that they can be inspired by, because movies have inspired my whole life, like so much. And I'm sure there's millions of us out there who are inspired. I mean, obviously me and you, very inspired by the films we do. And I don't think you give yourself enough credit. The emotional stuff you go through.
Oh, I have emotions.
Matter. I just mean, I'm sure that's there to motivate you to look at a film even more deeply, and that's important. And so that's what's so enjoyable about doing the show, is like we share our own emotional reactions to the films and what we brought from our own lives to these films. And I think people tweeted us and comment because it resonates with them as well. And when they have similar experiences as us, it's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I think, there's a huge swath of the population loves movies.
Yeah.
But there's a certain group of people that are drawn to them in this cinephile way.
Hey-o.
And continue to go back to them and back to them and back to them. And what that is that makes us want to do that, I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I do know that most of the people that are my close friends that I've really cared about over those years are those kinds of people.
Yeah.
That want to keep going in and looking and understand, learning in whatever way they can, or re-experiencing that stuff.
Yeah. And discovering it in a different decade of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
Different lessons from the films, which is really important.
Yeah. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
So, what are the movies that we've done so far? Is there anything that's really surprised you? Like in terms of
what?
Well, in
I would
terms
have to
of,
look at our list of films, but yes, in terms of what?
well, in terms of like you hadn't seen them in a long time, you experienced them in a new way, or you saw them really differently, or our conversation really changed the way you perceived a film. Like, for instance, one for me, I'd never seen Judgment of Nuremberg.
Yes.
So that one really affected me in a really profound way. And I knew what it was. I kind of knew what it was and didn't know what it was, if you know what I mean.
Right, right.
And the other one, which was one I don't think you had seen, which was one I'd watched as a kid and then was just watching with my family, was Black Stallion.
Yes.
You know, where I just had this, and I called you up. I'm like, I want to do this in the Cine-Files. I think we did it within a week.
Yeah.
You know.
I think for me it was All the President's Men.
Oh yeah.
I remember All the President's Men was something that I enjoyed growing up, and my time that I experienced it, but I didn't really I didn't understand why I enjoyed it as much as I did, and I didn't think we could analyze it in the way we analyze normal film, and then we could, and then we did, which was really incredible, because to me it seems like a faux documentary in essence,
Right.
and it ends up being so much more. And the other one I would say that leaps to mind is High Noon. High Noon is one that I've dismissed at times as a simple Western, because it's just a guy who has the population of the town turn his back on him, and these people are going to attack him and whatever. And for when we broke it down, I found a whole new appreciation for that film that I didn't have.
It's a deep movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes into a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, and the other one, like I remember, like having Sasha on for Pulp Fiction.
My God, yeah, it was great.
It was that was when I think I said it at the end of the episode, which is that I really like Pulp Fiction, but I loved it so much more after having that conversation with Sasha. You know, it was just so much fun having her there.
Yeah, the guests do a great job of having us re-experience the films through their eyes. Because Steve and I have known each other so long, we can in essence understand each other so well about our approaches to film. And so we probably have a subconscious or instinctive understanding of how we're going to look at a film with each other. So when the guests come in, it's a whole new way to experience film through their eyes and see what they catch that we may not have catched together yet.
Well, and particularly because I think yours and my tastes are relatively similar. And my evidence for this is that when I listen to the Top 10 show, I tend to agree with you much more than I agree with Matt.
Yeah.
Now, there are some times where I'm like yelling at the podcast a little bit.
Well, sure.
But but when we have a guest in, then they bring in their own movie, and sometimes it's a movie that you and I know, but maybe not as much, or have sort of a different perspective. And it's great to have someone come in, you know, and bring their own thing.
Yeah, and this, what's also interesting. Well, here's a question for you, Steve: is there a film that we've done that has changed your mind about it?
The Searchers, definitely. I mean, The Searchers.
Interesting.
I mean,
okay.
It's still not a movie I feel like I want to go back to all the time, because it's very painful. But man, that movie is so well made.
Right.
It is so gorgeous, and the cinematography is amazing, and John Wayne gives the performance of his life, and that was definitely one where I went, wow, this is really something.
Yeah.
You know, whereas French Connection, which was another one that wasn't one of my favorites, still not really one of my favorites. You know?
Right.
I mean, again, this is what we do on the show. I can appreciate it in all of these ways.
Yeah,
but I can't love that movie.
Right.
You know, how about you?
I think for me, Willy Wonka, because
Well, you had never seen it.
I'd never seen it, but also because I dismissed it as a kid's film in my mind, and I'm like, I don't need to see that film. You're like, and I'd seen the Imagination, or I'd heard the Imagination
song. Yeah,
I never saw the actual clip from the movie. I'd only heard the song, and so and I really watched it. I had to make myself watch it the night before we were going to record the episode, because I wanted to. I was such a procrastinator about it, because I was like, what if I hate it? What if I don't like it? What if it's not going to be my thing?
Right.
And then I watched it, and I enjoyed it almost reluctantly. I enjoyed it because I wanted to not like it in a way, and I enjoyed it. And then to hear you and Yuri talk about it,
it was so much fun that day.
Right. Yeah. And it really completely changed my point of view on the film. Absolutely. You know,
is there a film that you didn't like? We can be honest with our audience.
I think I'm still coming to terms with my the recent distaste for Casablanca. That's one that I'm really struggling with, and my opinion on it caused two of the most negative comments we've ever gotten at my expense on Facebook, on a couple of comments on Facebook. And, you know, I felt for the first time ever, the Cine-Files was corrupted by something we'd never had before with these negative comments. Because almost 100% of our comments are positive comments from people saying like,
yeah, we get
really
them
enjoy it.
I know sometimes when you and I get political, that there are definitely people that are upset by some of the things that we say, who disagree.
Yeah, but that's a different situation. This was more our points of views on the film, and people were saying to me, you know, how they felt that I didn't give Ilsa a fair shake. That's the character's name, Ilsa?
Ilsa.
Yeah, a fair shake. And then I was excusing Claude Rains. And, you know, I had to really take a look at myself because I didn't think that I'd done that. And so, but if people were feeling that way, that was really difficult for me to accept. So I feel the way I feel about Casablanca. It is not a film that it really isn't. And I've seen it multiple times, and I just don't see the magic of it. And even Humphrey, who I enjoy more in African Queen or Treasure of Sierra Madre, or even in Angels with Dirty Faces, I enjoy him more in those kinds of films than I do, or To Kill or Be Killed. I enjoy him.
I've never seen that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I enjoy him more in those kinds of films than I did in Casablanca for whatever reason. And yet he's never more vulnerable than he is in Casablanca. So it's an interesting path for me to walk with this film.
Well, it's funny, like, we're not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not going to, there are things that I've said. Fortunately, I'm also the editor. So there are a few things I've said that I went, I don't like the way I said that. And I took it out.
Right.
And there are a few things I know that like I've sent to you like, John, do you want me to keep this in the podcast? And sometimes we've kept them in and sometimes we haven't. But sometimes we're not going to say everything exactly in the perfect way. Yeah. And sometimes you're not going to like our opinions, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it's for the quantity of material that we put out, we're going to make some mistakes. There are some things where the fact that I got Bruce Lee's height wrong just upsets me so much.
People commented ad nauseum on that.
And I'm glad they did because I was wrong, but I just so embarrassed. There have been like 4 or 5 other things where it's like, oh, I left that out. Oh, I got that wrong. You know, and it's
that's part of the process, man.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
But it also means people are listening. And that's really, they're just not having it on in the background. They're legitimately listening. Because if they're catching something, it's because they're listening intently and they're commenting.
Well, and the reality is if we get something wrong, I want someone to come tell us.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no pride here in that way. No, you want to get it right.
No, my pride is in totally different ways.
Are there films that we have not tackled yet that are near the top of your list that you are
one
looking
coming up
forward to?
that we're working on right now is Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a huge one. Right. When people ask me what my favorite film is, and my answer is always kind of bullshit because I don't know how you pick your favorite film. Okay. But my answer I always give is Lawrence of Arabia.
Right.
You know, and that's one we've talked about doing hopefully in the near future. So that's definitely one. A lot of requests for The Godfather.
Yes.
And Godfather 2, which I know we're going to do, you know, under the right circumstances. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I echo your sentiments on all those films. I think 2001 is one that I'm looking forward to doing. And I have this strange desire recently from Robert Meyer Burnett and a couple other people on Twitter to possibly tackle Barry Lyndon. It's a film that I absolutely hate. And
I watched it once years and years ago. I didn't like it. And
I wonder if we can do an experiment where we look at a film that both of us don't necessarily like, because that's never happened yet, where both of us don't like the film. And it's considered a classic, and maybe revisit it and take a look at it in a new way for the show. I wonder what that episode might be like.
Well, let me tell you my thoughts. That's a long movie.
That is a long damn
it means,
and a boring long ass.
And it means us putting a lot of time into doing something.
True.
Like I think it would be more fun is to have a special episodes where we rip a shitty movie to pieces.
Oh, now you want to rip shitty movies?
Well, I do it. I do it every once in a while, and be as sort of a Patreon thing or something like that.
Oh, right.
But I don't want to put 9 hours of research and 5 hours of editing into Barry Lyndon.
Right, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
So maybe we do a running commentary on Barry Lyndon where we tear it to pieces as we're watching.
Maybe
that might be an interesting.
Yeah. There was another one I just thought of. I don't remember what it was.
Okay. Well, one film I haven't mentioned yet that I really enjoyed doing was Apocalypse Now.
I think it's one of our best.
Yes.
I like that episode a lot.
That's one I go back to and listen often, to be honest with you. Like, and Matt never listens to our top 10 episodes, and I always go back and listen to our stuff because it's like, because that's how I'm built. I go back and revisit things all the time, and I think that, which is to my detriment sometimes in my profession, in my personal life. But like with this, I go back and listen to our episodes and enjoy them thoroughly, and certain ones. And Apocalypse Now is one that, because I love that movie so much, I thought we really brought our A game for that episode.
Yeah, I think so too. I that's one I really like. I listen to. Well, I finish editing it.
Yeah.
I post it, and then usually 3 or 4 days later, I'll listen to it just to make sure I didn't mess anything up.
Right.
And to listen through it, and I like the sound of my voice, and I like the sound of your voice. I like what we're doing.
Right.
My goal, and this is maybe a highfalutin, arrogant sort of goal, is to I want to have the definitive discussion about a film.
Yeah.
I really want, for people that like the Cine-Files, like if they go, oh, I'm going to watch Apocalypse Now again, I want to go listen to the Cine-Files episode.
Yes.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, Apocalypse Now was a real turning point in terms of how I was editing things, because things have changed over time. Like if you look at our early episodes, they're like an hour, and more and more, they're like the length of the movie or more, which is a problem. On some levels. I don't know if any of you people out there have a problem with it. I have a little bit of a problem with it.
Well, you've also become more, your notes taking has increased.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it used to be a page.
Well, you
would give me before we started. I would cursory look it over, and then we'd just do it.
Well, what's changed is that it's really become us really walking through the whole film, which we really didn't do before. And to some degree, I feel like we do that too much. And I would love to find a way to get out of the weeds a little bit. We don't actually have to talk about how this person picked up that glass in that scene. We can just kind of skip ahead. But it's hard. Once I get into the sort of this happened, then this happened, then this happens, it's hard for me to skip a thing. But also the thing that started to happen after Apocalypse Now was going, oh, when the show is working really well, it feels as if you and I are talking to the film.
Yes.
Like some of the people who don't know, we had one guest come on the show who thought we were going to watch the film while we did the podcast.
Oh, right.
And because sometimes it sounds like that's what's happening. When in fact, no, we're just having a conversation. But I wanted to feel the way I edit it as if we're talking to or responding to what's just happened in the film.
Yeah.
And that have the audience member hopefully have both a good conversation about the movie, but also sometimes have the emotional experience of the movie while they're having it. Like I was really pleased with the end of Rocky.
Oh yeah,
is that to hopefully have people feel the end of that fight while we're talking. Or feeling the climax of Jaws or the emotional situation in Close Encounters or whatever it is that sort of interplay between our a real-time conversation and the aesthetics of the film. That's what I'm trying to do when I'm editing. Sometimes I do a better job than others.
Do you have things that you are there actors or genres of films that we haven't given enough attention to that
so many
you want to focus on for 2018?
We've never done Meryl Streep.
Yeah, we need to do that.
We've never done
Katharine Hepburn.
Never done Katharine Hepburn.
We really need to do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many,
we did Poitier Within the Heat of the Night, so that was nice.
But there's more.
But there's so much more.
Yeah. There's Defiant Ones. Well, and also what we missed, which we talked about, but is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is the 50th anniversary in 2017.
Right.
And we had already done Heat of the Night.
Yeah.
We had done The Graduate. We had done Dirty Dozen. It was all of those. And it's like, well, we didn't do Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Well, and sometimes it's because, like you said, Steve, people die, and if people die and we revere them in their, like Martin Landau and John Hurt, we'll do special episodes that throw our schedule out of whack because we feel we have to honor their time and their effect on our lives with the movies that they did and the characters they portrayed.
Yeah. I mean, we did Modern Times, which is sort of into the silent era, but we haven't done F.W. Murnau. We haven't done Buster Keaton. We haven't done any of those people. There's all of the
Harold Lloyd.
Yeah, we haven't done Harold Lloyd. There's a whole bunch of musicals. There's a whole bunch of. I mean, I'm not the biggest horror person, so we've done The Thing and we did The Shining.
Yeah,
but we really need to give more time to that genre.
No, I'm not a big horror person either. Yeah, but the best horror I enjoy.
Yeah, we haven't done Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah,
that's a huge one.
I know, you're right. We should walk into that one. Yeah, we should definitely make it a concerted effort to do that one.
Well, and it's funny because people on Twitter are sometimes sort of like, "Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done this?" And it's like, we're doing one a week. doing what we could do.
We're doing the best we can.
You know,
man.
it's like, yeah, there's Howard Hawks and we did one Billy Wilder. There's other
William
Wilders.
Wyler. There's a lot of William.
Well,
Wyler.
we got one. We have a date for Easter.
Oh, we do.
For William Wyler.
Oh, for Ben-Hur.
Oh, we've been talking about it.
That's right.
So coming this Easter, we will be doing Ben-Hur. I know it's one of your favorites.
Coming this Easter.
Yeah.
We're definitely doing it. And we've talked about doing, like we said, Lawrence. I mean, there's so much that I want to explore the screwball comedies more.
Yeah.
Like It Happened One Night with Clark Gable and
Philadelphia
Story. Absolutely.
Bringing Up Baby.
Yeah, because those are going to make me watch those films again, which I would watch through film class and then talk about it, and then I would never watch again. And a lot of those are Criterion Collection films.
Oh yeah.
So I would love to explore that, and I want to explore some more foreign films.
I was just going to say, the only ones we've done are Cinema Paradiso and Yojimbo.
Yojimbo, right?
Those are the only ones, and we certainly talked about Seven Samurai, but there's a bunch of
Breathless.
Renoir, there's Breathless, there's Rules of the Game, there's Bicycle Thief, there's Rome Open City, there's so many.
400 Blows. Yeah, or even Russian Battleship Potemkin is one. Ivan the Terrible we could dance around with. Tokyo Story is another one we haven't touched on.
I've never seen.
Yeah, which is one of the most destructive films you're ever going to watch emotionally. There we haven't touched on a lot of Chinese cinema, Korean cinema, and we haven't done any anime. And so there's certainly possibilities where we could do
Akira. Akira is one we gotten a lot of requests for.
Yeah,
I have a whole story about that one.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Do you want to tell it now or just when we do the podcast?
I can tell it when we do the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should make that one of our first ones in 2018.
Okay.
Akira, because I think it'd be great to kind of take check that box and do that. And yeah, you're right. There are musicals we haven't touched on, because what did we do? Singing in the Rain and American. Oh no, we haven't done
Singing in the Rain and West Side Story.
West Side Story.
We've been talking about American in Paris.
I want to
haven't
do
done
American
it.
in Paris.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, we ran into Milena and David Cornu, who are also guests on our show.
Fantastic.
We should give them shout outs. That West Side Story one I think that's our opus.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Yeah. That was one that we really got bone deep. So.
Yeah. And they were so great to have on.
Yeah.
They brought so much expertise. Yeah. Amazing.
All right. Well, that's, I think this is good. Do you want to, okay. All right. Well, this is why I wanted to have this, just to have a conversation with you. And I wanted to tell you all, and I think I echo, and Steve, of course, will say what he thinks, but I just want to thank all of you who have listened to us, who have come aboard. A lot of you I've gotten to know from other shows you've come over. We've picked up new listeners who maybe from your friends, from your family, that you've turned on to the Cine-Files. And so it's been a blast to get to know, to a degree, a lot of you, to hear from a lot of you, to know that you're consistently listening to us at the same levels that we're anywhere between 1 and 4 for the week on Podomatic, which is great. And keep the suggestions coming. I mean, not obviously at a high volume, but keep the suggestions coming. Maybe, and pass this on to your friends. Pass this on, like tell your film professors about our show. Maybe you'll be able to, like play an episode in your class as a class. Maybe your professor will appreciate that when he listens to an episode and gives us some love. And maybe they'll pass that on to their students and whatever in their classes and different teachers. So I think what Steve's right. I think we want to be the definitive podcast for a film. If you go see a classic film or a great film, you turn our episode on and you listen to us break it down and analyze it. And so it's been a pleasure doing it so far with you, Steve. It's been a joy to really discover these films again with you and talk about this stuff with you. And it's been a joy sharing it with everybody who listens to us every week.
Yeah, I can't begin to tell you what a privilege it is to be able to do something you really like every week and share it with a lot of people who appreciate it. So I know there's so many cinephiles out there who love film the way that we do, who love being part of this conversation. And we really like hearing from you, whether or not it's on YouTube or on Twitter or Facebook. And it's been so nice being able to schedule every week that you and I are going to talk about a great movie, as opposed to every couple of months where we would end up, out somewhere. Like this is like, no, officially we are going to get together to talk about it. Sometimes it's hard to schedule. Sometimes it gets tough to work out because you and I both have very busy lives, but it is such a pleasure to go do it. And just every time it just, it brightens up my day to have this conversation. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. And thank you everyone who's out there.
Do you want to end the show? Because I'm not.
You started it.
Plugs. I'm not good at doing the plugs.
You want me to do the plugs?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I will do my regular rant that you can visit us on our Facebook page at the Cine-Files. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, on YouTube, on Spotify.
Worldwide, man.
You can. Well, you got the worldwide just took me right out of my brain. You can leave comments. You can leave reviews. You can buy all of our movies on our website, Cine-Files.net, and you can support us on patreon.com/thecine-files. And that's it for this
Where
week.
can they follow you?
Oh, yeah, they can follow me at SR Morris. John, where can they follow you?
You guys can always follow me at The Roca Says on Twitter or Instagram. I hope all of you had a healthy and happy holidays. Grab 2018 by the throat and get what you need in this life. Fight, 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 and go and have an awesome year this year. And we hope to be with you every week with a new film.
Or almost every week.
Oh, almost every week with a part 1 or part 2 or a new film every week and a new episode. So thanks again. And we will talk to you soon on the Cine-Files.